Welcome, ma'am. I'm just so excited that we are going to talk gingerbread house today and learn the beautiful history of your gingerbread house making. I know I discovered it in 1991 and I fell in love with it. So we'll get to that story later. But let me introduce ourselves. My name is Sylvia Peterson. I live in Miami, Florida. I am married to this wonderful lady's third son, Dan Peterson. We'll have been married for 30 years next month. And I'd like to introduce to you my mother-in-law, Maureen Peterson. So Maureen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm an old lady. I've been around this world for 89 years. I've lived here in Miami for 57 years. My husband was in the Army and we were transferred here because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we just stayed. So I am a member of the American Legion Auxiliary. I'm chairman of Veterans Affairs. I'm chairman of Girl State. I'm chairman of the Poppy Fund. And I do lots of baking for bake sales to raise money for these projects. That's about all for me.
That's beautiful. I love that story. I love all that you do at 89 years young. I just love all of that. So let's start with the gingerbread story. And I have one of my gingerbreads here, and we'll look at it later. But tell me how you got started. What made you want to learn how to make gingerbreads, and tell me that story.
Well, I had five little kids, and I wanted them to enjoy a gingerbread house. So one day when I was shopping at Sears, they sell Wilton products, and I was looking there and they had a sign for one of the women that works for Wilton that she was going to have a class on making gingerbread houses. So I paid my dues and went to the class. She sent us the recipe for gingerbread and the patterns. And then we went to her house and she had all the rest of the things that we needed. And I built this gingerbread house that was way too big. And at that time, I worked at a country club. So I took it in there to put it on their Viennese table during the holidays. So then my husband made me patterns for smaller houses. So the recipe I have for gingerbread, for the one gingerbread house, makes 5 or 6 gingerbread houses. And I started making them and giving them to my friends for Christmas presents. And through the years, I've added one thing or another to make them prettier. And then when my husband was sick and the fire rescue saved his life 4 times, me 12 extra years with him. So for that, I put 12 candy bars inside each house. And that's how they developed through the years, little by little.
And we couldn't even figure out what year that was that you went to Sears, but your kids were young.
Yes.
And your oldest son is now 70 years old.
Right.
So we're thinking that maybe that was 60 years ago.
Not quite. I know. I really don't know. It's got to be 45 or 50, or it has to be over 50 years that I've been making them, because he wasn't a little kid, he's the oldest, but he was still a kid. And so it's got to be over 50, 55 years that I've been doing it. Who
That's
keeps count?
That's incredible. I just love that story. And of course, I discovered your gingerbread houses in 1991 at my first Christmas with you, where I was already married to your son. We met and married in the same year. We met in April. We got married in November. And so by Christmas, we were a married couple, and I was at your house for the first time. And I saw these gingerbread houses, and it just made me just so happy and joyful. And I just I told you that I wanted you to teach me how to do that. And how did that feel when I was so excited about your gingerbread houses?
Well, actually, what I remember was after Hurricane Andrew, because I always made the gingerbread houses, and my kids got to have as many as they wanted for Christmas presents. And after Hurricane Andrew, my house was trashed, and I wasn't going to make any that year. I did have a gas stove, so I could bake. We didn't have electric for like 3 or 4 months. But so when you guys found out that I wasn't going to make any, you asked if I would make at least one order and show you guys how to make them. So I said, okay. I ended up making 5 orders, which were about 25 gingerbread houses. And ever since then, you guys, wherever you've moved, have made gingerbread houses. And I'm tickled to death that one of my kids and his wife want to carry on my tradition. I make, or I have made, over 200 gingerbread houses every year, except last year. Last year, I'm getting older, I'm a little slower, so I only made 167.
Only, she says,
I'm
only.
aiming for 150. I have, I think, 91 or 92 baked already.
Good for you. Yeah, so Hurricane Andrew was 1992, so that was the year after. And I remember being super excited to buy a KitchenAid mixer because I always wanted one, and now I had an excuse. I figured if I sold so many gingerbread houses, it would pay for the mixer. And that was another motivating factor for me. Yeah, so I started making them in 1992. I've never made more than 97, but I average more closer to 50. So when you say only, what did you say? Only 100 and how many?
167.
Only 167. I was like, oh, okay. But what I love about it all is we start talking about gingerbread houses. Certainly by September, October, we start coordinating our supplies, and we work together on finding our supplies, because there's always something that is hard to find.
Oh, that reminds me.
Tell me.
I picked up my cellophane yesterday. Do you need any?
I don't. I still have quite a bit because I order it by the case. Yeah, now that we live close to each other, because for the last 24 years, I have lived away. So all of these conversations were a little bit more remote. Or I would pick up supplies when I would be visiting Miami and take them back with me to Seattle. So tell me some of your favorite stories. I know you've given these gingerbread houses, and I know you have rules for your gingerbread houses.
Definitely.
Tell me your rules.
Rules are you can't eat it for at least 3 days, but they'll last through Christmas. And the reason for that rule, one year I gave one to my neighbor across the street, and she had a 3-year-old, and she put it on the dining room table, and we were talking at the front door. And while we were talking, the 3-year-old started eating the gingerbread house. And I thought to myself, I could have brought her a bowl of candy. So the rule is you can't eat it for at least 3 days, because I want you to enjoy looking at it at least the 3 days. And then the other rule is, excuse me, if I ever get one in return, you'll never get another one. So those are the rules.
Any gift. You're not allowed to reciprocate with any gift, or else you don't get a gingerbread house the next year, because we don't do it to receive gifts. We do it to just provide you with joy.
Right.
So what are some of the, I know that you give gingerbread houses to the fire rescue stations that rescued
Right.
your
Fire
husband.
Rescue 50. They usually get somewhere between 32 and 40 gingerbread houses each year. Last year, they didn't, because I had cut my my count down. But this year I'm going to try, and I think I've scheduled enough to give them each one, because there's 3 shifts of 7, and then they have the battalion chiefs and for each battalion, and then they have the people who fill in when somebody's sick. So it ends up being somewhere between 32 and 40. So, but most of the houses that I make are given away to my friends, people at the American Legion, my priests, and my family. My kids come, they don't, Dan is and Sylvia are the only ones that live nearby. But my other ones live in Florida, but they usually come down for Thanksgiving. So I have to have enough done for Thanksgiving, because they take with them anywhere from 8 to 14 houses each. So I need 50 or 60 finished by Thanksgiving.
And so that joy gets spread all the way up to northern Florida.
Yes.
Tell me the story that when your doctor told you that you had to slow down.
Oh, no, that was the guy. The doctor told me, yeah, that I had to start, cutting back, but not to cut his out. And then at Fire Rescue, I tell them each year, this might be my last year. And I tell them I'm getting slower because I'm getting older. And they told me to start earlier. So,
Nobody wants to get cut off the list.
yes.
Nobody wants to get cut off the list. I do want to talk a little bit about, sometimes we see houses where the front door is on the gable side, and you taught me to put the front door on sort of the wide roof side. Tell me a little bit about why you like that design better.
Well, when the front door is on the narrow side, it looks more like a church. So I wanted it to look like a house. So I turned it around and it looks like a house now. Actually, it kind of looks like my house.
It does, except your house doesn't have a chimney.
What now?
Your house doesn't have a chimney.
No, no, my house does not have a chimney, thank God.
That you've lived in Chicago and you've lived in Alaska.
I've lived in Texas, Virginia, Chicago, Alaska, and here in Miami.
Yeah, and some of those houses had chimneys, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Alaska had a chimney, of course.
Alaska, yeah.
Well, Wisconsin, we lived there, that had a chimney as well.
Alaska is where my husband was born.
Right.
So of course I remember that. Is there anything else you want to share? Any other story or anything else you want to share with us?
You're breaking up.
Oh, breaking technical difficulties. Is there anything else? Any other story you want to share?
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who has 4 children. And when they were younger, well, every year she gets a gingerbread house, but when they were younger, she had it on the dining room table for a centerpiece. And her mother had Alzheimer's, and her mother and stepfather came over to the house on Christmas Eve to spend the night so they could be there on Christmas morning with the kids. And during the night, her mother got up and ate the whole gingerbread house. And the youngest boy was about 10, and he had a fit. So I had to give her another house. So the following year, the house was on the dining room table. And when Grandma pulled up in the car, this young boy grabbed the gingerbread house and took it to his room and hid it so Grandma wouldn't eat it.
I love that story. That's a good story.
Yes, and if you remember, the Christmas card that she gave me was perfect for that story.
I have that Christmas card here and it's on my Instagram story, and it's a gingerbread man with a sign that says, "Homeless, please send money. Someone took my house."
Someone ate.
Someone ate my house.
I loved it.
I love that. That is perfect. Perfect. Well, I know that I think I calculated that I probably made around 1,500 houses. I know you've probably made way more than those, but
Oh, yeah.
it's people ask me, why do you do that? It looks like so much work. And what do you say to that?
Well, when I first started giving them to my friends, it was for their Christmas gift. But later on, just to see the kids' eyes when they see one, or even the adults, I started worrying that it may be a sin for me because I'm doing it now for myself, because I love the reaction I get when I give them to people. So who knows?
I don't think that's a sin. I don't think God is going to punish you for that.
I hope not.
No,
All the time.
I'm certain that spreading joy and feeling good about that is a great thing to do.
One year when Debbie, my oldest daughter, was visiting, I was making gingerbread houses, and my front room was loaded with wrapped gingerbread houses that I needed to deliver. And she called, I think it was Channel 10, ABC, and said, you know, my mother's house is not decorated on the inside, but this is what the outside looks like. And she sent a picture. And they came out and recorded and went with me over to Fire Rescue 50 when I was delivering them. So that was pretty neat.
I remember that, and I remember it being, I remember that video clip. It's hard to find now, but I remember that. And that's when your front room is filled. The couch has it, the floor has it. It's like barely walking room, because when we're baking gingerbread houses, they don't take up a lot of space, right? They're small and wrapped. But once we start making them, they really grow in space and they take up a lot of room. And then it's hard to be the one that makes them and the one that delivers them, because we're both, right?
Yes.
And
yes. Actually, one year, I think it was 3 years ago when I was delivering, I fell coming out of my girlfriend's house. There was a small step and I fell and broke my wrist. And I still had like 9 or 10 to make. They didn't get made. So I've always got that to remember.
yes, to be careful, to be careful. Any other stories? I know we could talk on and on and on about
God, yeah.
all the stories over the years, but I want to thank you for making gingerbread houses, and I want to thank you for teaching me. And I hope somebody picks up the tradition in the next generation. Maybe it will be one of my son's wives that picks it up, and that the tradition continues, because it's a beautiful, beautiful tradition. And I want to thank you for teaching me.
Well, I want to thank you for carrying it on.
All right, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'll talk.
I love you.
I love you too, hon.
All right, let's get back. I know you were baking and I'm interrupting.
I've got to get them done.
We try to finish all our baking by Halloween. That's the goal.
Well, I need to finish not only the houses baking, but my little Christmas trees. They go in the front yard and they're made out of a miniature upside down ice cream cone that we decorate. Yes, I see it.
You see it?
Yes.
That's your son's contribution to my.
Yeah, well, I've got to do my own, so I need to make
I know
150 or 160 of them before the beginning of November. So I'm going to be busy.
You're going to be busy, and I will let you go. And I thank you so very much.
Okay.
And I will see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Love you.
Love you too, hon.
Bye.